The Papah Trail. Let's go, 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 go. Yeah, 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 yeah. For the love of money, niggas come around. For the love of money, some stay around. For the love of money, what a nigga will do. For the love of the money, yeah. I gotta shake it, 12 at night to 5 in the morning. They don't give a fuck now. If it's for the money, niggas gon' bark and they bite like a motherfucking dog. Gotta party like a motherfucking dog. For that cat, I am gon' roof and I'm barking at that cat, and I am gon' take the roof off when I'm riding that ride. Rip, leaning to the left, but I'm steady on the only right. I'm swerving with a purpose, A nigga been sipping on that purple. A nigga been cheaping on that purple. Cause I'm getting money, Cause I'm getting money. And I'm laughing all the way to the motherfucking bank. And I'm telling her, tell me later if she thinking what I'm thinking. Damn, me getting money. I walk about the bank and I stuck up in the wheel. Headed to my next big destination. Somewhere where I'm gonna be faded, sipping on a motherfucking Molotov, feet in the fucking sand, looking like a motherfucking distant.
Breaking news this evening, Donald Trump is now claiming that he's already won the lawsuit against the IRS that he filed, essentially saying that he's going to take to $10 billion in taxpayer dollars. Quote, I will tell them to pay me. In a new interview with NBC News, he made this stunning claim this evening, essentially suggesting that the lawsuit's already done. Previously, he sued the IRS and the Treasury Department for $10 billion. And tonight, he says, quote, essentially, the lawsuit has been won. I guess I won a lot of money. I'll give 100% to charity. He's already claiming he's taking this $10 billion from you, the taxpayer. He sued the IRS and the Treasury Department. Only problem with that is that there is a major conflict of interest because he's suing his own executive branch, his own government. And so Pam Bondi, Scott Bessent, his own people would have to defend against him. And he's saying, well, we already won anyway. Spread the word. Full updates on my Substack, linked in bio. Subscribe for free. Follow along, stay up to date on all the news you need to know about. I'll have more to come very soon.
There was a 4chan post. It was before he was announced dead, about an hour before. Someone goes, basically Epstein was taken out, wheeled out in a wheelchair, taken into a white van with guys in military uniforms. He said this is something that is never done on the weekends. There was no tracking it. No paperwork was written down. They just wheeled him into the van.
Yeah, so this is the post. He said, not saying anything after, do not try to dox me, but last night at 04:15 in the morning count. They took him to medical in a wheelchair, front cuffed, but not one triage nurse says they spoke to him. Next thing I know, a trip van shows up. We do not release on weekdays or weekends unless a judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and he hangs himself. Here's the thing. The trip van did not sign in and did not record the plate number. And a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I'm shaking right now. I think they switched him out. This is him, right? And it actually is his actual, he did work at this prison.
It's a subpoena. They subpoenaed it, but they didn't report on it after they subpoenaed it. It's like, so why did you subpoena the guy? They probably wanted to threaten the guy.
Prison's interesting. And the reason why when I saw your post on this, I thought this was so fascinating is, like I said, one of my buddies, he's still active. I'm not going to say who he is. But he used to transport El Chapo back and forth from this prison while he was going through his trial years ago. And when I asked him about it, do you think this is possible? And he said, it would be the easiest thing ever.
Is that America got their hands on more than 60% of the world's gold in World War II, and that let them create the economic reset. And this is what is being copied by many countries today, because after 2008, when America printed $700 billion of paper money to bail out its banking system, the rest of the world kind of threw its hands up and said, hang on a minute, we are holding all these US dollars in the hopes that we can buy oil with these US dollars. But if they can be devalued so quickly, why are we holding this in our savings? And this created the biggest and most important trend shift that I think we've seen in economic history.
Interesting connection point to this. There was this guy, Craig Spence, in the late 80s. And this guy, Lawrence E. King out of Omaha. Craig Spence, he was a Washington lobbyist. Time did a profile on him, calling him the man from nowhere, a power broker in Washington, D.C. He started his career as a correspondent for ABC in Vietnam. And he liked to say that that's when he started working for the CIA. He liked to speak in spy lingo. ABC relocates due to Tokyo. He starts doing public relations consulting for the government. This 1982 profile, before this broke, have names, will open right doors. His clients include multinational companies, study groups, and what most impresses is his social and political chemistry, important connection. He's a power broker. And there's an inexhaustible demand for the sort of thing he offers. He has a phone book that includes congresspeople, government, and journalists. He has this fancy house in a fancy neighborhood where he's known to throw wild parties, also at the Four Seasons. He counts William Casey, the director of the CIA, as a buddy. Ted Koppel, one of the most known journalists in America, and Richard Nixon. Apparently, he knew about the downfall of the Shah of Iran 6 months before it happened. Oh, he starts getting known to be involved in this. In fact, some of this was going on at the White House. As the scandal starts to break, it turns out blackmail, bugging, drugs, this stuff. His old friend Ted Koppel just says, oh man, fascinating and outrageous. I mean, almost play by play, the same. Turns out Craig Spence was involved in money laundering. Key officials of the Reagan and Bush administrations get caught up in it. This investigative journalist, Nick Bryant, breaks the story and starts to see this. He specifically says that it's a lot like this case. They were recording it, and anybody who went into that home was basically compromised. Enter this dude, Lawrence King, in Omaha, big-time banker, GOP politician, starts to get investigated for some crazy financial stuff. Oh, looks like something else is uncovered. Very similar targets. They start investigating. Turns out there's these late night parties, people being flown all over the place. Wow, okay, sounding similar. They set up the Franklin Committee to investigate. The survivors reporting almost the same stuff. 2 of them say they were flown from Omaha to DC and they had to do this. We're hearing about that now. Then apparently the commission's lead investigator, Gary Caradori, gets some really great evidence, explosive evidence. And then all of a sudden, his plane with the evidence literally broke up in mid-flight, according to witnesses. Then a corrupted grand jury finds this, but 2 of the survivors won't be quiet, so they actually go to prison. This dude pleads guilty to financial crimes. Craig Spence, the power broker, yeah, that's what happened to him. No participants prosecuted. Uncanny similarities.
He's also suing the government, our government, for $10 billion because a contractor who worked for the IRS leaked his tax returns. You know those tax returns ever in federal taxes in 2016 and 2017. And now, not only is he suing the government that he is currently running for $10 billion, he's also planning to figure out a settlement that he will pay himself. This is the first time a sitting president has sued his own executive branch, and it's also one of the nuttiest lawsuits ever. He's suing the IRS for $10 billion, 2/3 of their total annual budget, because his taxes were leaked while he was running the IRS.
You're suing the IRS. Talk a little bit about what it's like to be on both sides of a lawsuit.
It's very interesting. I have another one where, I've virtually won the Mar-a-Lago break-in suit. And I have to work out some kind of a settlement. I'm supposed to work out a settlement with myself.
Yeah, I'm going to offer myself $1 billion and see if I go for it. We'll go from there. He's finally figured out a way to sue himself. It is the ultimate form of financial masturbation. But don't worry. I want you to know all your hard-earned taxpayer money he's suing for is going to a good cause.
Thank you for joining us, Madam First Lady.
Hello, Stephen. It is very cinematic for you to be seeing me right now.
Weekend that everyone is talking about.
Oh, Stephen, no. I am not here to talk about the Epstein files.
The release, no, ma'am. The release I meant was your movie.
Oh, yes. Melania, the lady, the movie, the motion picture. This film is a deliberate window of tapestries draped over a rich bed frame of insights that are so authorship few have ever seen it, and even less have wanted to.
But can you actually tell us what the movie is about, ma'am?
Oh, it's about $28 million in my pocket. Cha-ching!
I thought it was a documentary, but you keep saying that it isn't. What genre will you say it is?
Oh, just like me. It is a very creepy mystery.
You're right. The Chuck E. Cheese CEO who stepped down after his name was in the Epstein file. Look at everyone who was involved, people who were in the Epstein files. Apparently, a bunch of billionaires, a lot of whom are in the Epstein files, like billionaire Richard Branson, who was in a ton of photos and emails with Epstein. And he said, quote, bring your harem for the next island visit. Like Sultan Sulayem, who's in a ton of emails and photos. Look, there's Sultan Sulayem right there. So it's held in Saudi Arabia every year, and there's kings, CEOs, prime ministers, presidents of countries, a bunch of billionaires. They run FII, which stands for Future Investment Initiative Institute. The Chuck E. Cheese CEO, who has now stepped down after his name was in the Epstein files, was attending this. So basically, FII is somewhere where a bunch of billionaires come in and they put their money in order to improve the world, okay? And their four main focuses are AI and robotics, education, healthcare, and sustainability. And doesn't this sound like stuff that Epstein was involved with, as all those billionaires? What was really happening when they were all meeting together? Okay, so there's the King of Jordan, CEO of JP Morgan, Jared Kushner is there, Stephen Wynn, doing among all these CEOs and presidents. That's weird. Citigroup, Samsung, Rivian, founder of Rivian, JP Morgan CEO, Horowitz, BlackRock, Hyperloop, FIFA, Crown Minister of Bahrain, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Rwanda, Prime Minister of Greece, India, President of Ghana, Kenya, President of Senegal, President of Korea, Saudi Arabia, former President of Brazil, Australia, Aramco is major, Congo, Minister of Saudi Arabia, Bhutan, Bangladesh, South Africa, CEO, so many CEOs, Secretary of Treasury, CEO of London Stock Exchange, President of Canoe, Jared Kushner, right there, CEO of Andreessen, Virgin Hyperloop, former Lady of South Africa,
Perhaps the more extensive references were reserved for members of the billionaire class who traveled in Epstein's circles, including the billionairiest of them all.
A possible visit to the financier's infamous island.
Elon says, do you have any parties planned? I really want to hit the party scene in St. Bart's or elsewhere and let loose.
I'm sorry, I hate to do this. Can we zoom in on the email on that, please? Christmas Day? You're asking if Jeff Epstein's got any parties planned on the island on Christmas Day? I mean, look, Christmas is tense time. We've all had that feeling, trapped in the house with the in-laws and 14 to 16 of our children over the holidays. But generally, Elon, the wanderlust doesn't really hit till the 28th or the 29th, but Christmas morning? You emailed Epstein Christmas, dearest Jeffrey. I've just seen the joy in all my children's faces as they opened their gifts. Get me the out of here. And ever since those revelations, Elon has been, how do the kids say it, crashing out. He's posted about the Epstein files more than 85 times over the last 2 days. Oddly enough, mostly on Blue Sky. No, I'm just kidding. And if I may, Elon, slow down, brother. You got to make some time for tweeting about the white genocide, too. Life's a balance.
Today, a giant lake right in the middle that once filled the entire San Joaquin Valley. Over the centuries, it gradually shrank. Today, it no longer exists. But why? This ancient lake, known as Lake Corcoran, was formed thousands of years ago from rainfall and melting glaciers that filled California's Central Valley. Eventually, the lake's waters breached a natural barrier and drained into the Pacific Ocean, leaving behind a much smaller body of water, Lake Tulare. For centuries, Lake Tulare remained the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi River and one of the largest in the United States. By the 1920s, the rivers that fed the lake were dammed and diverted for irrigation and other agricultural uses. Since then, the lake bed has been covered with farmland growing a variety of crops. Despite warnings about the environmental impact, the government continued to fund projects and build dams to divert water from the lake and its feeder rivers, causing a dramatic drop in water levels and the lake's near-total disappearance.
Iran just seized 2 oil tankers in the Persian Gulf, and the global markets are crashing in response. This morning, February 26, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval forces intercepted 2 foreign oil tankers near Farsi Island, carrying approximately 1 million liters of fuel. 15 foreign crew members are now in Iranian custody, transferred to judicial authorities in Bushehr. The tankers' nationalities remain undisclosed, and Iran claims they were smuggling diesel fuel through networks monitored for months. But here's what makes this seizure different from Iran's usual tanker harassment. The timing is deliberate. Trump just proposed yesterday that America should crack down on Iranian oil smuggling, seizing Iranian shadow fleet tankers to destroy Iran's economy without military. Iran's response was immediate and brutal. We'll seize your tankers instead. And they did. Within hours of Trump's suggestion to Israel that economic warfare could replace military action, Iranian forces grabbed 2 vessels in waters Iran controls. The message was crystal clear. If you want to play economic warfare games with our oil revenue, we'll show you what economic warfare actually looks like when we control the choke point through which 20% of the world's oil flows. The markets understood that message immediately, and they panicked. Bitcoin, which $126,000 in October, crashed to $69,000 today. That's a 45% collapse from its peak. Roughly $800 billion in market value has evaporated. The cryptocurrency that Trump promoted as digital gold, the asset class that was supposed to thrive during geopolitical chaos, is getting destroyed. Ethereum fell to $2,068, its lowest level since May 2025. XRP crashed below $1.40. Dogecoin is fighting to hold 10 cents. $775 million in leveraged cryptocurrency positions were liquidated in 24 hours as prices collapsed through technical support levels. And it's not just crypto. Gold, the traditional safe haven asset that investors flee to during crises, dropped over 3% on Friday. Silver plunged 17%. These are assets people buy when they're terrified of war or economic collapse. And they're being sold off alongside risk assets like stocks and cryptocurrencies. Why? Because the markets are realizing that if fighting breaks out between the United States and Iran, there's no safe place to hide. Oil prices will spike, global trade will collapse, inflation will soar, and cash will be king because nobody knows what any other asset will be worth when 20% of the world's oil supply suddenly stops flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told the House Financial Services Committee yesterday that the U.S. government has no authority to bail out Bitcoin or direct banks to buy cryptocurrency. Translation: if crypto crashes during a crisis, you're on your own. The government isn't rescuing digital assets the way it rescued banks in 2008. That statement triggered additional selling as investors realized that institutional adoption and spot ETFs don't protect cryptocurrency from existential market crashes. BlackRock's IBIT Bitcoin ETF recorded $373 million in net outflows Wednesday alone. Spot Bitcoin ETFs collectively have sold 10,600 BTC year to date versus buying 46,000 BTC at this point in 2025. That's a demand gap of 56,600 Bitcoin. The Fear and Greed Index, which measures cryptocurrency market sentiment, is reading 15. That's extreme fear territory where panic selling overwhelms rational decision making. The index hasn't been this low since the FTX collapse in late 2022. Michael Saylor's strategy company, which bet its entire business model on acquiring Bitcoin, now sits on $4.5 billion in unrealized losses. The company's average purchase price is higher than current market value. MicroStrategy stock has fallen alongside Bitcoin, wiping out billions in shareholder value. And Bitcoin miners are getting crushed. Bitcoin's current price of $71,000 sits below the estimated all-in production cost of $87,000. Miners are losing money on every Bitcoin they produce. Network hash rate has fallen 12% from October highs as smaller operations shut down unprofitable rigs. Daily mining revenue dropped to $28 million, barely covering electricity costs for many operators. But here's the terrifying part. This crash is happening before any actual fighting has started. Iran seized 2 tankers. Markets crashed 45%. Imagine what happens if Israel strikes Iranian nuclear facilities, if Iran sinks the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, if the Strait of Hormuz actually closes to commercial shipping. Let's talk about why Iran seized those tankers now and what it reveals about their strategy going into Friday's negotiations in Muscat, Oman. Iran didn't grab random smuggling vessels. They specifically targeted tankers during the exact window when Trump was publicly discussing economic warfare, alternatives to military strikes. That's not coincidence, that's strategic messaging. Trump told Israeli officials yesterday, according to Israeli media reports, that America could destroy Iran's economy by intercepting Iranian shadow fleet tankers carrying sanctioned oil to China and India. The idea was simple: no military strikes, no risk to American carriers, just interdiction operations that choke off Iran's $40 to $45 billion in annual oil revenue. Israel loved the proposal because it gives them another tool to pressure Iran without risking regional war. American neoconservatives loved it because it avoids the carrier vulnerability problem while still inflicting economic pain. It seemed like the perfect middle path between diplomacy and military action. Iran's response was devastating in its simplicity. They seized 2 tankers in Persian Gulf water. You want to intercept our oil exports? We'll shut down all oil exports through the Strait of Hormuz. Every tanker, every country. 20 million barrels per day of global oil supply stops flowing until you back off. And unlike American naval operations that require projecting power thousands of miles from home, Iran operates in their backyard. They don't need to send aircraft carriers across oceans. They just need fast boats, drones, and anti-ship missiles positioned along coastlines they've controlled for centuries. General Haidar Honarian Moharrad, the IRGC regional naval commander, stated that the tankers were seized near Farsi Island and transferred to Bushehr. He emphasized that these vessels had been under surveillance for months as part of fuel smuggling networks. The message embedded in that statement: we've been watching everything moving through these waters for months. We know which ships belong to whom, and we can grab them whenever we want. This is Iran's 3rd tanker seizure in recent months. They took one in November, another in December, now 2 more today. The pattern reveals escalating confidence that America won't retaliate militarily for maritime harassment operations. And Iran's confidence is justified. What's Trump going to do? Order strikes on Iranian naval bases in retaliation for seizing smuggling vessels? That triggers the exact regional war he's trying to avoid. Send more destroyers to escort commercial shipping? There aren't enough American warships to protect every tanker transiting the strait every day. Iran has turned economic warfare into their advantage. Critical maritime and the timing, just 2 days before Friday's negotiations in Muscat, sends another message. Iran enters those talks from a position of strength, not weakness. They're not begging for sanctions relief. They're demonstrating that they can crash global markets, seize commercial shipping, and threaten oil supplies whenever Washington pushes too hard. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi made Iran's position explicit earlier this week. Willing to discuss nuclear enrichment, absolutely refused to negotiate on ballistic missiles or regional activities. The tanker seizures reinforce that red line. Iran's maritime harassment capabilities in the Persian Gulf are regional activities they consider non-negotiable. Meanwhile, the cryptocurrency market crash reveals another dimension of Iran's leverage. Markets are pricing in the possibility of actual conflict. Bitcoin's 45% collapse isn't driven by technical factors or crypto-specific news. It's driven by geopolitical fear and recognition that if war breaks out, risk assets will get destroyed. Gold and silver falling alongside crypto signals something even more disturbing. Traditional safe havens aren't safe when the crisis involves potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz, because there's no asset class that benefits from global oil supplies getting cut by 20%. Stocks fall because recession becomes inevitable. Bonds fall because governments need to spend trillions responding to the crisis. Commodities fall because demand collapses. Real estate falls because nobody's buying houses when World War III might be starting. Cash becomes the only refuge. And even cash loses value to inflation when oil spikes to $200 per barrel. $400 billion fund managers sent urgent letters to Trump this week asking what his strategy is because markets are in complete chaos. Gold crashes, Bitcoin crashes. Nothing makes sense anymore except fear. And that fear is entirely rational given what Iran just demonstrated they can do with 2 speedboats and a drone. So here's where this crisis is heading. And why the tanker seizures today might be the catalyzing event that forces both sides toward outcomes neither wants. Friday's negotiations in Muscat face impossible odds. Iran demands that talks address only nuclear enrichment. And even then, they're offering temporary limits, not permanent dismantlement. Trump demands comprehensive agreements covering nuclear programs, ballistic missiles, and regional proxy support. There's zero overlap between those positions. And the tanker seizures this morning make compromise even less likely. Iran just demonstrated they hold leverage. They're not negotiating from desperation. They're negotiating from strength. Trump is trapped in the worst possible position. His maximum pressure campaign failed to break Iran's economy. His military threats failed to intimidate Iranian leaders. His diplomatic outreach is producing talks where Iran dictates terms. And his alternative strategy, economic warfare, through oil interdiction, just triggered Iranian retaliation that crashed global markets. Every option Trump has is bad. Strike Iranian nuclear facilities and risk losing the Abraham Lincoln carrier plus thousands of American sailors. Launch economic warfare and watch Iran close the Strait of Hormuz, spiking oil to $200 per barrel. Accept a weak nuclear deal that leaves Iran's missiles intact and face Republican revolt plus Israeli fury. Walk away from negotiations entirely and watch Iran sprint toward nuclear weapons capability within months. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is convening his security cabinet ahead of Friday's talks, not to support diplomacy, but to plan for what happens when diplomacy fails. Israeli intelligence is providing Trump with targeting packages for Iranian nuclear sites. Israeli military officials are offering joint strike operations. Israel is positioning Trump to own the failure when negotiations collapse, then demanding American support for military action Trump doesn't want to authorize. And Iran knows this dynamic. That's why they're so inflexible on missiles and regional activities. They understand that Trump's political survival requires avoiding war while maintaining the appearance of toughness. So Iran offers just enough on nuclear issues to keep talks alive while refusing concessions on anything that actually protects their regime. The tanker seizures are Iran's insurance policy. If Trump authorizes strikes anyway, despite the negotiations, Iran immediately closes the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices triple. American economy crashes into recession. Trump's approval rating, already underwater at 39%, collapses further, and Republicans face devastating losses in November midterm elections. Trump's advisors understand this. That's why he keeps delaying the decision to strike. Every briefing he receives makes the case for military action look worse. Carrier vulnerability, Iranian missile capabilities, economic consequences, allied reluctance to support American operations, lack of viable targets, given how much of Iran's nuclear program is buried in hardened mountain facilities. But delay has costs too. Every week Trump doesn't strike, Iran's nuclear program advances. Uranium enrichment continues. Centrifuge cascades expand. Weapons design knowledge improves. American intelligence estimates that Iran could produce enough weapons-grade uranium for one bomb in under 2 weeks if they made the decision. Trump is negotiating with a country that's nearly a nuclear threshold state. And getting closer every day, he hesitates. The cryptocurrency market crash today is the market's verdict on Trump's Iran strategy. Investors are voting with their wallets, and they're saying loud and clear, this crisis is spiraling out of control. There are no good options, and massive volatility is coming regardless of which bad option Trump chooses. Bitcoin falling 45% in 4 months doesn't happen because of normal market cycles. It happens because investors are fleeing risk assets in anticipation of catastrophic events. The smart money is moving to cash and waiting to see if the world's most dangerous region erupts into war that could crash the global economy. And they're right to be afraid, because the tanker seizures today prove that Iran has both the capability and the willingness to escalate whenever America tries to pressure them. They're not North Korea, isolated and contained. They're not Iraq, hollowed out by sanctions and regime incompetence. They're a sophisticated regional power with asymmetric warfare capabilities, specifically designed to inflict maximum pain on American interests at minimum cost. Trump sent the Abraham Lincoln to intimidate Iran. Iran flew drones through its defenses. Trump proposed economic warfare. Iran seized tankers. Trump scheduled negotiations. Iran dictated terms. At every turn, Iran has countered American pressure with escalations that reveal the limits of American power. The markets see what's happening, even if Trump doesn't want to admit it. America is losing this confrontation. Not losing militarily, the US military could still devastate Iran in conventional warfare, losing strategically, because Iran has made every American option too costly to execute. And that's why Bitcoin is at $69,000 today instead of $126,000. Why gold and silver are crashing alongside risk assets. Why $400 billion funds are begging Trump for clarity. The markets are pricing in strategic defeat, either through a weak negotiated settlement that leaves Iran's capabilities intact, or through a catastrophic war that destroys the global economy, even if America wins militarily. Either outcome is disaster for American credibility and economic stability. And the tanker seizures this morning move both outcomes closer to reality. Friday's talks in Muscat will determine which disaster we get. The markets have already made their bets. They're betting on chaos. And based on everything that happened today, they're probably right.
You guys, I am shaking right now. So I guess the headline on this one would be that there's certain there's nothing to believe about this case. I wouldn't dismiss anything. I certainly don't dismiss this. And so why do I say this? Well, because in the Epstein files, as Heather C. says, this is huge. The individual who anonymously posted on 4chan the morning of Epstein's death, August 10th, 2019, claiming he witnessed weird happenings at the prison before Epstein's death, has been identified in the Epstein files. Roberto Grijalva, an officer at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, has been identified as the anonymous prison employee who posted on 4chan claiming Epstein left his cell Friday evening shackled in a medical wheelchair, while at the same time an unauthorized trip van arrived at the prison, which he believes took Epstein away that night before the news broke of his death. The day after Epstein's death, U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman of the Southern District of New York opened a grand jury proceeding and subpoenaed 4chan, Apple, AT&T, and Citibank for records aiming to uncover Grijalva's identity following the anonymous 4chan post. Grijalva's name is not redacted on his bank records included in the SDNY subpoena response from the Citibank for his 4chan post, and ties to the same prison officer, Roberto Grijalva, whose statements were released as part of the prison's investigation into Epstein's death. This is huge. We now have validation. The 4chan post from August 10th, 2019, is a legitimate eyewitness account from the MCC prison officer that Epstein may have been switched out before news broke of his alleged suicide. And so here, it's like I've been saying, it looks like easy money to be a lookalike until that one job that you don't want shows up.
Like
So
Bourdain, they say it's Bourdain. I don't know if that's true, but that's who they say they switched him with.
So not saying anything after this, please do not try to dox me. But last night after 04:15 count, they took him medical in a wheelchair from front cuffed but not one triage nurse says they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a trip van shows up. We do not do releases on the weekends unless a judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and hangs himself. Here's the thing. The trip van did not sign in, and we did not record the plate number, and a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I am shaking right now, but I think they switched him out.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
so hard to believe.
So not hard to believe at all. Kurt was being sarcastic.
Sorry, I apologize.
Thanks. I appreciate the sarcasm. And so here we go. Not saying anything after. So this is it. That's him, and that's how it's in the files. That's what I just read to you. There it is. Signatory details for Roberto Graval. There it is. Let's keep going. This is, there it is, United Metropolitan Correctional Center Memorandum, Gravalda, on Friday, August 9th, 2019 at approximately 1:15 p.m. Gravalda passed on to the oncoming staff member, Officer Davis, and present shift staff, Shakir and Officer Joyner, that inmate Reyes was going WAB and possibly may not return. Also, the inmate Epstein will be needing a cellmate upon arrival from his attorney visit. So here is, I don't know if you've seen this, Kurt, but I stumbled across this on the Twitters, and so I've seen things like this before, and I never looked into them until I found about this guard saying this stuff.
Yeah.
So they say this is the picture of Jeffrey Epstein that they said is Jeffrey Epstein when he died. This is actually Jeffrey Epstein, and you could see that they have a different nose. Not only that,
his nose settled when he died.
Not only that, but they have a different ear. So the dead guy's ear goes like this. Jeffrey Epstein's goes like that. So one goes up, one goes down. So
you don't think the hanging from the bed sheets adjusted his ears, maybe?
So here's a closer look. That's dead Epstein. This is live Epstein. Not the same people. Different nose, different ear.
Well,
there's the dead Epstein's ear, and here's the live Epstein's ear. Do you see the difference? That's a big difference. Also, the nose is is different. So now I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if people's ears change when they die. I don't know if people's noses change when they die. Maybe they do, but now we know that there's a plausible and a credible assertion that Jeffrey Epstein got switched out and he's actually not dead, which is what I thought, but I dismissed it in my own head. I'm like, I bet no.
Yeah.
They switched him, and he's probably living on an island somewhere right now that we don't know where it is. So I'm not saying that is a fact. I can't, but I'm saying I wouldn't dismiss it.
Oh, I bet all my WorldCoin on it, all my Sam Altman WorldCoin, that it is a fact. First of all, I said yesterday or Monday, if Epstein's dead, then he worked for Mossad. If he's alive, Mossad worked for him. And the reason I say it's true is because he's the representative of the Rothschild family. That's why Bibi's got to send torture videos to him. Okay, remember his other email that people put together that was probably Bibi? Oh, what a surprise. Oh, I need to see more evidence. I couldn't believe something like that. So basically, he's not some working class kid from Coney Island. That's a big bullshit story. The Epstein family name's an old family name, and in the files it tells you about it. Which Rothschild? She goes, yeah. So apparently Hitler stayed in that poorhouse, when he was an artist, and it was run by the Rothschilds, the Epsteins, and some other name. And it turned out to be true. Yeah. So what happens is these sick fucking families Candace was talking about, they always give a kid up to the network for the thing to advance their family. And the real payment, and my friend Nathan told me this, the payment is you don't get wealth. If you want to start your own kingdom, they give you the black book of contacts. That's the important thing to have. And he was talking about his family, but what was the big thing Epstein had? Oh yeah, the black book. That's and then you're supposed to go out and earn on your own. like a hoodlum or a gangster. That's what that is. So yeah, no, he wasn't a poor working class kid. He wasn't no genius. He was the Rothschilds represent. That's why he would be on the Trilateral Commission at the age of 30. Do you remember yourself at 30?
Right.
You think you would sit on that?
On the Trilateral? Yeah, I know.
And Epstein, I sound way smarter than him. He sounds like a jerk off in interviews. He don't sound at all impressive. So clearly, he is the representative of the Rothschilds at the Trilateral Commission, just like they send people to Bilderberg, and there's even bigger names than them that you never get to hear. He's a rep. That's why he's more important than Israel itself, because the Rothschilds, as you know, are why Israel exists, the Balfour Declaration, etc.
Oh, that's correct.
They don't live there, do they? Were they dying to go home? No, they want it there because they're people.
Now we're going to be inundated with the conspiracy theories about this. Like, he secretly had Macron's vagina, and they had to move him to a woman's facility.
Oh, I didn't even think of that, Jimmy. Maybe Macron's had a vagina, if had a dick. What a twist.
He's got a vagina, and he's dead only to his parents. Come see me on tour. I'll be in Lansing, Milwaukee, Albuquerque, Houston, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. If you go anywhere, you're going to pay more.
The proposal called the Bancor, a new international currency that would be managed by World Central neutral Bancor, backed by gold, but not tied to any particular nation's economic policy. It was brilliant, it was fair, and the Americans crushed it. Harry Dexter White, representing the U.S. Treasury, had a different vision. The dollar would become the world's reserve currency, not the Bancor, not a basket of currencies, just the dollar. All other currencies would peg themselves to the dollar at fixed exchange rates, and the dollar would be convertible to gold at $35 per ounce. This system meant that to engage in international trade, countries would need to hold dollars, and the only country that could print dollars was the United States. America would effectively become the world's central bank. The British pound, which had been the dominant reserve currency for over a